And I think those who view the midterm rental space as competition, they're the ones that are flying solo and doing things by themselves, which is okay. But when we have the collaborative mindset, the like a growth mindset, a lot of amazing things can truly happen and you can get much further along. You can make more money. You can have more bookings. You could have lower vacancy rates. You could do all the things together as a group. And there really is strength in numbers in the midterm rental space specifically.
I love that, and I just thought of once I thought of something. I think also, like, I think we're also serving the guests better if we're able to be like, "Hey, I don't have a place. What are you looking for? Let me help you out." And that just makes me feel good. Getting that message from the family that's so grateful because 'cause they've been displaced and I was able to find them something. It's like an intangible thing, and I think that's the other reason I like the community aspect.
Welcome to the She's Got Assets Real Estate Investment Podcast. I'm the host, Shona Lepis. Follow along as we unpack and demystify real estate investment strategies through expert interviews and personal experience. From how to find off market deals to creative financing to long term and midterm rentals, we aim to educate and inspire others to gain financial freedom and generational wealth through real estate. And as always, please subscribe so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate reviews. It helps others find us and just helps us get found.
Hey, everyone, this is Shona from She's Got Assets. I'm so excited to have James Hwang on. I probably said that wrong, but he's a very well-known midterm guy, just really passionate about the space and loves sharing knowledge. And I really enjoyed getting to know him. So I'm so excited to have him on. So, James, if you want to do a quick intro, let us know what you're all about. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Firstly, it's truly an honor. I've actually been following you for some time too. And so this is a cool bucket list item for me. And I know we've gotten to know each other too the past year and stuff. So really great opportunity for me just looking to provide it value. And so a little bit about me. I'm a real estate investor. I'm a business owner. I'm also a full-time W-2 employee. So I work as an oncology pharmacist in New York City, treating cancer patients. So that's what I do by day. Any type of period that I have where I have any type of break or in the evening, in the mornings, what have you, I'm doing a lot of real estate investing and running midterm rentals. And so I'm based in New Jersey. All of our midterm rentals are also in New Jersey as well. I'm one of the co-founders of Stellar Housing Solutions, and I have two partners, Dennis and Frank, and together we own, co-host, and arbitrage midterm rentals. We also provide some other services too, but all things midterm rentals. I also do some online education, talking about midterm rental operations and stuff. So really deep in the midterm rental game, and just happy to talk about it.
Okay, so what I love about what I've seen you, you're so passionate and you share stuff and you're so community focused. And that's what I love about the MTR community. I feel like we're not competitive. So I'd love to just hear more about your philosophy on that and how I know you've built a community and you have an education program, which I love. I call in your quote, but always learning something. I love it. So love to hear more.
Yeah, when I first got into real estate, I think it was 2021. Actually, no, I started learning about real estate 2020 during COVID. But the thing that I really wanted was a community because I was learning by myself. And I'm someone who has always had local communities, whether it's sports or academics or whatever it may be. And so I knew the importance of community and what that meant for me. And when I got into real estate, I didn't have that. So I started going to real estate meetups and connecting with other people that are just one step ahead of me or even one step behind. And along the way, I started building relationships with more people. And then I decided, oh, you know what? Instead of having 10 different separate text messages with 10 different people, why don't I just create like a group chat? And so what started as a bunch of friends going to meetups and stuff, we created our own WhatsApp group chat. And then once I got into the midterm rental space, then we also created a separate WhatsApp group chat also. And now what that has done for us is now we are doing everything as a group. We're helping each other as a community, sharing vendors, giving each other advice, sharing resources. And so I think my entire life I've always been in some sort of community. And knowing that I was lacking that when I first got into real estate investing space, I realized if I can't join a community, if I can't find a mentor or coach, I'm just going to build that for me, for myself. And so that's where we are today. And now with the several local communities that I have and also this online community, there's a lot of things that you get on the back end as a result of sowing all of the seeds when you need help, when you really need help the most. But you can send out a message and someone is going to come and help you. And those are the moments where I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I poured into other people, spent the time building a community and helping other people because at some point, we all come to a time and place where we need some type of assistance, whether it's something big or small. Right. And whenever I have those moments where I'm able to receive, not that I intentionally built a community to receive, but rather to give, that's when I'm like, man, this is such a beautiful thing. And I think people are not doing that. So I'm trying to change that narrative a little bit.
I love that. You reminded me, I think it was right when COVID when I realized you could just be an investor, and I was, like, always a very part-time landlord, and I found a meetup, and I was so it's like, "Oh my god, other people." It's, like, the best thing. No, I think we're always learning and sharing knowledge, and that's what I love about midterms. I don't think we're competitive. At least that's my feeling I get from her. Right.
Yeah. uh,
Hey there, savvy investor. Quick question. Are you ready to jump into midterm rentals but not sure where to start? Well, I've got you covered. And She's Got Assets. We help real estate investors set up and fully book their first midterm rental with quality guests so you can double or even triple your cash flow. And here's the kicker. We dive deep into marketing strategies, including how to tap into the lucrative niche of getting insurance leads for displaced families as our long-term stays that can really boost your bottom line without all the hassle and regulations of short-term rentals. Sound interesting? Head over to she'sgotassets.com/MTR and get all the details. And if you're new to real estate investing, we've got something just for you. Check out our REI Playbook course where we teach you how to snag your first investment property by finding off-market deals without cold calling or door knocking. We'll even walk you through creative deal structures like owner financing and how to leverage what you've already got. You can find all that goodness at she'sgotassets.com/REI. Oh, and one more thing, don't miss out on joining our free She's Got Assets community. We've got a ton of resources plus weekly live streams where you can dive deep into strategies to help you succeed. You don't want to miss it. Trust me. Hop into the community at she'sgotassets.com/network and let's get you crushing those real estate goals. All right, back to the show.
And I think those who view the midterm rental space as competition, they're the ones that are flying solo and doing things by themselves, which is okay. But when we have the collaborative mindset, the like a growth mindset, a lot of amazing things can truly happen and you can get much further along. You can make more money, you can have more bookings, you could have lower vacancy rates, you could do all the things together as a group. And there really is strength in numbers in the midterm rental space specifically.
I love that, and I just thought of once I thought of something. I think also, like, I think we're also serving the guests better if we're able to be like, "Hey, I don't have a place. What are you looking for? Let me help you out." And that just makes me feel good. Getting that message from the family that's so grateful because they've been displaced and I was able to find them something. It's like an intangible thing. And I think that's the other reason I like the community aspect.
Absolutely. And what we also do in our community is we coach and tell and give feedback to other operators on their listings and stuff too. If I have a lead and I want to pass it on to someone in my community, it's going to be a poor reflection on me if their unit looks terrible, right? If it's not furnished right, the design, the pictures, everything. So a lot of people actually in my community, everyone, if you do a search in New Jersey and you find listings that look really good, they're probably someone in our community, right? And so the benefit that other people get is that I'm going to help provide feedback, right? Because if I'm going to refer leads to you, it's not going to be a poor reflection on me, but I also know that the families, the people that need these midterm stays, they're going to be well taken care of, right? And so when people are having issues with their guests or their tenants or ask for advice for random things like smart locks or Wi-Fi or troubleshooting things. We're all doing it together in a group chat. And so everyone is learning at the same time. So by default, everyone's able to just operate at a higher level and truly just serve the people that they are hosting at a higher level as well. And so every single point in the hosting experience, whether on the hosting side or who is staying in the unit, everyone is kind of benefiting. And the most important thing is that we are taking care of our guests and the families and stuff. And being able to do that indirectly, for me at least, is something that's really meaningful.
Really, it never gets old either. And I had a guest and they moved in and there were a couple hiccups and I fixed them and they were still so grateful. Because I think we forget a lot if we're serving families, they've been through hell with remediation and water, whatever it is, or they're coming to the area and they don't know anything and they're just so happy to have have that experience that we actually care about them and it's I thought out a nice property, right? So I think we forget that. Okay, that's who we're serving, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That kind of brings up going I think we are in the hospitality business first and foremost, and I think sometimes we're investors, but ultimately we're in the service business, right? So if that's not your jam,
No.
right?
Yeah.
And there's so many ways I know you've got tons of systems, but I'd love to I think people's when I think about pain points, it's like marketing and how to get leads and how to nurture those, and I think we're both big on that part of it, so I'd love to hear how you guys approach that on how you're, like, nurturing relationships for leads to get stay booked, right?
Yeah. Even going back to the basic level of if you going back to community again, if you have a community, a local community with other landlords. And so for us, we have I think 23 active midterm rentals, and we have about 3 or 4 in the pipeline. They're gonna come live soon too. And yeah, I can say that I have 20 something units, but the reality is I actually have 60, 70 plus units, right? And so now our listing descriptions actually change. One of the things that we always market, even at the basic level on Airbnb, Furnished Finder, VRBO, wherever we are, is that we have a portfolio of rentals. So send us a message, right? Because we may be able to fit you with a better property or provide you more options. And doing something like that generates more inquiries that come in. And if we have a lead that we can't house, then we always tell them, if not us, we will be able to find some home or someone in our network for you. Right. So that's another level of service you're also able to provide. You're also able to generate more inquiries that come in when you have a line in your listing that says we have a portfolio. Whether you own, whether you have one unit or 20 something, 30 something, if you are within your community, you can market everyone's units to a degree. And so first and foremost, that's like the lowest hanging fruit that actually helps us a ton. We have a lot of people. One of the things that I say is that, let's say for on Airbnb, when someone does a search, they're flooded with hundreds or thousands of different midterm rental units, right? By the time that they finally send you a message or a booking request, you may be at the end of the train ride where, okay, I've sifted through all these listings. I favorited a bunch. This is the one listing that I want to kind of book. So I'm going to send you a message, right? What if you can, instead of getting the lead at the tail end, what if you could bring that all the way to the front of someone's search, right? And so one of the things that I say is, yeah, if you're struggling with finding housing or if you are feeling overwhelmed, send me a message because we have that portfolio and a network. And so I would say half of the messages or the inquiries that come in, they say, hey, I see that you have a lot of units, or I'm looking to be in this area. How many properties do you have that could fit? And so now the conversations that we're getting are just completely different once we've instituted just changing of phrasing or adding that. As far as marketing with other our units, one of the things that we also like to do is to just not totally rely on Airbnb, Furnished Finder, VRBO, all of those OTAs, but rather we want to also build relationships with corporate companies, people that are also lead connectors. And Yeah, you could upload your listings up on different portals for ALE solutions, CRS, like all of them. But there's also a healthy amount of people that are like the third party middleman to all of that too. And so I guess maybe I'm just good at building relationships with people, but I happen to be friends with most of the owners of those companies. And so whenever they have any leads in New Jersey, they just text me directly. And so having something like that is really amazing because that also means I don't have to necessarily go fishing for leads like that. But I am also close with Jesse Vasquez too. And one of the things that obviously Jesse preaches is you need to go after companies, build B2B relationships. And I would say the easiest way to do that right now is literally just use AI. And if you don't have ChatGPT Plus or like a pro version of Claude or whatever, number one, you have to do that because it only costs $20, right? But you can create a prompt and have ChatGPT or Claude find medium to large size redevelopment projects and construction projects and look for all the names, the positions, the phone numbers, the emails, the contact, and they'll even write an entire campaign for you of if you're going to call, say this. The second time you call, say this, or send this email. If they don't reply, then so there's an entire drip campaign that it could make for you. And so leveraging AI to figure out what are all the construction that sites that are happening? And you know what I realized? I'm in an area where we're pretty densely populated. I had no idea, but they're also building a data center not far away. And that's crazy because usually those data centers are in places that are a little bit more rural. But had I
Mhm.
searched on using AI, I would not have found stuff like that. So using AI to go look for those B2B opportunities, that's really key. And of course, just picking up the phone, contacting local companies, hospitals, corporations, those are always things that you can always YouTube. But it takes time, it takes effort. Sometimes it's most of the time it's harder for me to do that because I am working a day job as a pharmacist, but you could also outsource some of that too.
And so many great tips. I just want to go back to where you said in your listing that we have a portfolio. And I think that also, I just love that because it seeds the idea because my calendar is always open and I will move people around and it lets people increase weights. And I think that's such a brilliant idea because then we're also helping and sometimes that property's booked, but we can go somewhere else. But yeah, I think AI is so powerful. And I think it's a lot of work up front that once you build those relationships, become the go-to person like you've done. And I think it's just kind of talking about it a lot. I found midterms, I just started yelling it from the roof. Now everyone's, oh, she's the MTR person. I'm like, that was never my intention. I don't know if you've had that experience, probably, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would go to meetups, just tell people about what I was learning about midterm rentals, my own experience, right? And this a couple years ago, people were like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy! You're making how much? Oh, they take out your garbage, or they leave the home spotless, right?" And eventually, at the meetup, so we became known as the MTR guys, and so we even Frank, one of my partners, he made a shirt that says MTR guys on the back because a lot of times people would be like, "Oh, speak to them over there, and they're the MTR guys." So we were like, you know what, we'll just put that on the back of our shirt, and by default, you become this quote unquote expert. Not necessarily that you're the expert, but you're the person that has knowledge because you're also doing the thing. And the thing is, like with midterm rentals, we're still so early in the ball game, right? And everyone knows about short-term rentals. That's like a huge thing. It's its own asset class, right? But the midterm rental space is not exactly an asset class yet. But we're gonna get there. We're getting there. And being able to showcase your knowledge, especially early on, because there are not too many people out there that are so outwardly spoken about midterm rentals, it's actually a good time to publicly say, "Hey, I do this thing called midterm rentals," and then you have a lot of people sending you DMs. I'm sure your DMs are crazy.
People just know me as that, and it's from the midterm queen, and I'm like, I kinda cringe. I'm like, "That's not really." I just yeah, but it's just because I post a lot, and I think full disclosure, we've been landlords for 20 years, and I was super private about it. I was like, "We're gonna get judged," and like, I've heard you say you're in a market that's very unfriendly towards landlords, so I just started talking about, and I think it's like people are afraid to talk about real estate. They're kind of self-conscious. And I think that you're not going to get judged. I think if we reframe it to we're providing this really valuable service and people need to know that we're not evil to them.
Yeah, I think in the midterm space, mo I feel like people don't realize that it's 100% a hospitality industry too. And so
Mhm.
with the midterm, you get a bit of the short-term side and the long-term as well. And I think that's one of the perceptions where you don't necessarily have to be as hospitable, right? And I think that's also a problem with a lot of the midterm rental landlords too. I know you talk about all the time, but when you create a listing online, you have to curate it a certain way, take professional photos, put the time and energy to do that. And people are not doing that. And to me, that showcases that they don't really understand how much of a hospitality business this really is. I think part of it is they're taking their long-term rental, I don't know, landlord brain and then trying to fit that into the midterm rental space. But truly, you kind of need to develop this short-term rental hospitality side and then implement that in the midterm rental space.
Yeah, mic drop. That is so true because you are layering it. My brain is long term, right? So sometimes I'll catch my but I grew up with short term rentals, like pre Airbnb. So I think it's baked in, but I do feel like, and that's how you grow a brand and that's how you get good reviews. And the one thing I do love is that you can launch a brand new listing and have no reviews and get totally booked. And that's just like, unlike a short term, that's unheard of, right?
Yeah. I don't have the updated stats, but I knew at some point last year, I kind of tallied everything up. And I think around that last year when we had about 20 units or maybe 18, 19, whatever, I was tracking how many units of ours got booked, had a confirmed booking, whether it's a Airbnb booking or a security deposit collected prior to finishing up furnishing and setting up. And we were at like 68% or 67% of our listings. And so that also meant 67% of the time we were like, oh my God, we don't have enough time. We gotta hustle and get this done. And that's the best type of problem to have. And along the way, you know what I also realized too? Sometimes you can't necessarily make that deadline, meaning maybe there are certain items that just didn't get delivered, right? Or you're just missing certain things. But the thing about hospitality and the midterm rental space that's also forgiving too is you kind of need some things to go wrong. And in order for you to showcase your professionalism, your speed of communication, your quality of service, and your hospitality, when something goes wrong, you need to be able to work really quickly. And so what we realize is, oh my gosh, they're checking in tomorrow, but we totally forgot there's an iron and ironing board, right? If they move in and they say, "Hey, is there an iron or ironing board?" We can say, "Oh, not really. Oh, thanks for flagging that for us. We're actually gonna ship it right now, and it should arrive in 2 hours." If you're using something like Walmart Plus, they'll get there super fast. You responded really quickly, you solved the problem, right? And of course, the way that you're communicating with them is gonna be professional, tactful, and very polite. And the fact that you're able to ship something to them really quickly shows them already, like, how professional that you are and how hospitable you are. We realized that, you know what, even if we can't make it 100% to the finish line by the time they check in because we had to hustle, it's all right because now we can earn that 5-star review and almost guarantee we're going to get that 5-star review versus having midterm rental guests that never has any issues and never says anything and kind of goes radio silence. And maybe at the end of by checkout, they start mentioning, oh, I had this issue or that issue. And it's, why are you telling us now? Good problems, good problems.
I wish there was like a heart emoji. I'm like, where's the heart? What? I feel like I preach this for the rooftops. I've gone properties booked before there was any furniture, and everyone's, you're crazy. I'm like, no, people want the location. They want to know that you're professional. And AI virtual staging, I virtually stage and no, and ever, and it's just don't wait for that perfect moment, like you said. And it builds actually trust when you're like, I've had to send a microwave. I didn't even realize it was missing. And it's like, it actually, to your point, you kind of want to be able to provide that service. So I think that's brilliant. Yeah. I think getting it out early, you can test your pricing, you can test demand. I even do a thing, I call it my A/B test. I'm like, should I go midterm or long term? And I'll put out like 2 listings and then I see what wins. And I'm like, and there's been times where I've had to raid our house for silverware. Look, moving in and we're like, tomorrow. I'm like, oh shit.
You know, with e- with listing properties early too, some really quick strategies. One of the things that I will say in my listing description is I always mention we're currently finishing and we're almost finished, right? Almost finished means that, oh, is that tomorrow? Is that in 2 days? I could be weeks away, but it's still going to say almost finished because I want to continue those conversations. I want those inquiries to come in to see when their check-in dates are and if they are flexible. And that way we're not losing these opportunities. And I think that also helps us to get that 60 something percent rate of booking before we're even ready. But using AI definitely to virtually stage it is great. Another thing that I also do is if you have multiple units with economies of scale, certain things get easier. And so one of the things that get easier is, all right, saying we click on my profile to see how we furnish and design our units. And so when you create a call to action, you're going to click on my profile, they're going to see my other listings. And because we do a great job with professional photos and setup and design, there's already like a trust factor of, oh, okay, even if we don't have photos, and sometimes instead of doing AI staging, I will actually use like nice photos of similar units that are going to kind of look the same. And I will mention it too. Current photos of our similar units nearby. Click on my photos to see how we furnish and design. And so there's different touch points that you can market out there in order to generate those inquiries and leads before you have your full set of photos and you're done furnishing. But stuff like that is really important.
And I feel like there's so much fear of what if it looks different or, and I'm just like, get it out that that's like, I feel like I'm preaching and I love that you're saying, I love that you have the data because that's like proof. I don't track, I haven't, well, you guys are really at scale and we own most of ours, but it's just, and then you can test pricing and see, and because if, I always say, if you have a listing and you wait till every stick of furniture and silverware, and you could lose 2 months of bookings because there's like a lead time, right? So if anyone's listening, just take that to heart. And it's also, it's just putting up an ad. You're not like, you don't even have to rent it if you're like just kind of deciding. I don't know if you guys ever do that, but sometimes I'm like, should I go midterm or should I go long term? And I really just kind of test it. And sometimes, usually midterm wins, but not always. And I'm like, great, I just saved a lot of money.
Yeah. Like not every property is a good fit for midterm. I own a triplex and the first and second floor, they're midterms. They do great. The third floor is like a former attic conversion and it's not insulated well. There's electric baseboard heat and I'm in New Jersey and it gets really cold in the winters. And so it's a small 1 bedroom. The layout is really funky. The bedroom is so tiny but the living room is really big that my current long-term tenant, he uses the living room as his bedroom and has this big TV, and that's like his main living space. And the bedroom is like a little zen area with a futon that he created. So functionally wise and also utility wise, it doesn't make sense. Regardless of the revenue after the expenses, I'm not going to do that much better than long term. And not every unit is going to be desirable for midterm. And even whether it's a desirability standpoint or whether it's like a revenue and net income standpoint too. So all that stuff is really important. And I think the thing with you is that if you're able to figure out, I have 3 different cards that I can play, right? Short term, midterm, long term. That's a huge advantage because you never want to be stuck in just one position. You want to be able to utilize that property and have a backup to your backup. And I think that's like a big problem right now where people are buying pure short-term rentals. What happens when your listing somehow gets banned from Airbnb or something happens and you're in a vacation market? So maybe it would not necessarily make uh, a midterm and may make an even worse long term. So then now you're stuck. And I think, I'm seeing that also a lot in the midterm space too, because I have a lot of friends that we also coach and help to buy properties in our area, all community related. We all come to the house tours together. We go to the inspections together. We
I
analyze the
like that.
inspection reports. You use the same contractors or that we have this huge contractor and vendor list that we use. And so people are thinking, what are like the midterm rental rates that I can make when I'm analyzing this property? And I tell them, who cares about whatever you can make midterm? Number one, I'm not going to tell you what you can make midterm because it's going to be higher than what you probably think. And I want you to use conservative numbers, but I want you to make a decision based off of number one, find a really good midterm rental asset that is going to have all the amenities that's going to make it desirable. But I want you to analyze it also as a long term with the rates and the prices right now. If you buy this as a long term, you're probably going to have negative cash flow. And so the thing that I actually tell my friends is how much negative cash flow as a long term rental are you okay with? I need you to make your decision based off of that. If you do midterm rentals, it's gonna overperform and you're gonna be really happy. But I don't want you to buy something just because it's gonna pan out well as a midterm rental, but something happens, life happens, and if you have to pivot to long term, if it's going to result in a negative $1,000 a month long term, that's maybe something you really don't want to consider because sometimes you just don't have control and you're in that position. But let's say as a long term, it's negative $200, $300 a month cash flow and you are okay eating that cost because we are in a high appreciation market and an equity market, that's the way that you kind of want to buy properties, at least where we are. And use the cash flow as a bonus, but we're here to build equity.
Everything you're saying, I'm like, I feel like we're no one says stuff, right? They get so caught up and I'm like, there's this toolbox of exits and don't get stuck. What is best for that product? If you have some beachfront destination thing, go ask. But I do everything you're saying because I'm in a very expensive market. And I do think ideally it will carry, I want the income to carry the debt. That's kind of how I'm going to analyze it. I think people don't, they get caught up and I'm going to get like an 8K insurance claim. You may get that, but don't bank on that. Right. And I think you have to be so conservative. That's why I'll be into the soapbox for a second. Flipping is so risky because you're banking on these ARVs that may or may not happen. You don't know what the market's going to do versus getting appreciation. Even if it's a little bit of cash flow, you're going to look back and be so happy that you held the asset. And that's everything you said.
I think with buying rental properties, it's such a emotional roller coaster and it's very personal, right? And so we never
Mhm.
think that we're ever going to sell a property, but there will come a time where when you do, where it just doesn't make sense anymore. And the more that we can try to remove our emotions from it and just give an honest look from the outside in, having that type of mindset and lens is really important for sure. Absolutely.
And it's one more. So I kind of dove into this and I realized my favorite way to buy properties off market is seller financing because I can deal structure ways that make things cash flow, right? And we know we're getting the appreciation. But I love the other thing I love about what you're saying is you're in your own backyard and I'm in my own backyard too. And we're in expensive markets. What do you say to someone that's I'm gonna go to the Midwest and get some 200K property? And I don't know. I have my soapbox. I'd love to hear when someone asks you that, what do you
I'm going to say you need to realize that you have a competitive advantage, most likely, probably where you are local. But if you are going to go somewhere out of state, you need to have some sort of competitive advantage as well. And so if you don't know the area really well, you can hire a realtor and use them to try to tell you what are the good areas and bad areas. But when you buy a property, you need to have boots on the ground. You need to know way more, right? You need a support system and trying to curate that and find that out of state is pretty hard to do. But In places like in the Midwest, I feel like a lot of people buy in those areas because it's cheaper, but your appreciation is not gonna be what you think it's gonna be, and I think it's a little bit more volatile also. But let's say if you have a boiler that goes out or a furnace, now you spent 8 to $10,000, that could also just be 2 years of cash flow, right? And so when you're in a cash flow market like in the Midwest and you don't have enough equity and something like that happens, are you gonna be able to sell and be made whole again? And so it's a lot of work to do that, but if you are able to find something locally, everything about it just becomes a lot easier. Not to say that it's the end all be all. There's plenty of people that invest out of state, self manage out of state, and do that too, and more power to you. But I think we could always figure out a way to make things work where we are at home. But a lot of it is a mindset shift, right? To tell yourself in order to buy a property, you have to be okay with negative cash flow as a long-term rental is something that is shocking, especially to new investors, right? But if you're a little bit more seasoned, you have a bigger picture, you can buy and sell, you could do 1031. There's an entire portfolio engineering or archetyping that you can do. Yeah, in general, I don't want to say anything about people that are just buying in the Midwest because the prices are cheaper, but it doesn't always equate to easier or more success. I think go finding your strengths and taking advantage of that and the people that you have around you or the community that is around you is really important to have.
I love that answer. And I think it does come down to mindset. If I tell myself, it's like the reticular activating system, right? There's no deals, it's too expensive. But if you know how to market for off market, you know how to find seller financing. My last two deals were zero down, and that's bananas. But I got coached, and now I coach people how to do that. But when I was beginning, whatever you tell yourself, I think that's your reality, which is why real estate's like all about mindset,
All 90%. Yeah.
right? And even so, I live in an area that's not super on the map, and it's very carpety, right? So if you go out of state, I feel like you don't know, and especially with midterms, being in a really established, solid neighborhood is so important. And I don't know what your filter is. I'd be curious. My filter is, would I want to live in this property? Otherwise, I don't want to buy it. And I think that's really important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In my area, there's this one town called Montclair. It's really popular. Whether it's short term, midterm, long term, A plus market. You could be in January when no one is moving and you have a long term rental. If that's vacant, people are going to scoop that up, even if you still have tenants in there or you're renovating and you're not done. It's that type of A plus market. But Montclair also has this one street called Mission Street where it's like dangerous. And so, but people buy property around there. And then once they move in, like we had a co-hosting lead where they bought a property on that street in Montclair and they were moving out of state. So they wanted us to co-host. And when we found out it was on that street, we said, when you live there, like, how do you feel about the safety and like how comfortable you are? And they said, when we come home, we take the long way to walk home. And so because, yeah, there's a lot of shady activity that's happening. And the thing is, like, whether it's a short term, midterm, long term, whatever it may be, safety is like the number one thing. Like insurance is super duper important, but also guest safety for your residents or any of the occupants is really important. The thing is, if you buy an asset or home in a place that is not safe or in a place where you wouldn't want to live yourself, that's also going to reflect in your reviews, and that can also reflect, number of stars or ratings. And so, at some point, you can get in a position where every new guest that's coming in, you're anxious because you're waiting for that message saying, "Oh, actually, I don't feel safe here. I think I want to cancel. I want to leave. This is not what I expected." And the thing is, uh, it's a real thing. And I know that because we get a lot of leads that reach out to us that maybe they ghosted us as a lead, but then they circle back saying, "Hey, I rented an Airbnb or like this furnished finder place and it was not what I thought it was." Like the interior was misleading, but also the exterior was crazy. And so it's a real thing. And I think your point of saying, would you live in this property is probably like the number one thing that you need to be like thinking about for sure.
I mean, that's true because yeah, I guess it's really important, especially like families, traveling nurses. So I had a coach, and his thing was a romantic location that as human beings, we want to be around. We want walkable, we want across all the things, right? So I think that's just, and that's what bugs me about out of state. I don't know the nuance of the neighborhoods. I don't know. And I think people look at spreadsheets, and I'm soapboxing right now, sorry, but they just, there's the intangible of what's the vibe, like how is the neighborhood, right? And I think you don't know about it if you don't live there. And it may look great on paper, but again, if you're having guests that aren't having good experiences, that is, it's just bad for everyone. And you're not going to be, even up on a spreadsheet, it looks, all the numbers are just stellar. I still don't.
Sometimes there's a reason why the numbers work out on the spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay, we covered so much. I'm just going through my notes here. Yeah, I think just I what I think we find, and I think for anyone listening, I had another coach that what makes sense in your head and your heart, right? And for me, midterms check a lot of boxes. And I think I like providing value. It makes me really happy to have someone have a good experience. I'm curious for what you come from. What is about midterms that kind of feeds that or your values?
Yeah, absolutely. I think before getting to midterm rental space, I actually wanted to become a short-term rental operator. So when I bought my first property, it was a three-family house. I was thinking at that time, I was like, you know what? I want to do short term, but I don't know if it's going to be for me. I know it's a headache. It's a lot of time and energy that goes into it. Let me try midterm first. And if I like midterm, then maybe I'll, I'll know that short term is a good fit. That's how it started. And the property was near a hospital too. And so I knew there was opportunity there. In general, I think I've always just been like a hospitable person, someone who likes to serve others, and I knew that was a good fit. My entire life, I've always mentored and coached or took people under my wing, regardless of them even asking, right? And so I think it's like a part of me that just wanted to go into the midterm rental space because it's just how I am naturally. And so even for my long-term tenants, I don't want to say I'm the best landlord ever, but I go above and beyond for my long-term tenants. It's like, especially multifamily properties that I own, we're going to have monthly common area cleaning. The exteriors are always going to be landscaped and everything. I'm going to take care of the home. If you have any issues, I'm going to repair that leak or whatever immediately. And a lot of the times, the long-term tenants, they love me because I'm such positive landlord who provides for them, and I act really quickly too. But the other thing, there's another side, especially in the state that you live in or me, being tenant friendly, there's a lot of things that can go wrong where, let's say, you're in a position where there's non-payment or damages or you have to evict, right? And so in a long-term rental space, I feel like in the back of everyone's head, you're already by defaulting think you're nervous about getting paid rent on time, late, right? Multiple months late, and your units being protected. With the midterm rental space, there's the least amount of evictions and all that stuff happens in the midterm space, in my opinion, and the homes are going to be taken care of too. And so it's not like the short term where can potentially throw a party and also just get you into trouble by the city or your neighbors, right? And being able to have more control. Let's say even if you have a troublesome midterm rental guest, if it's a 3-month booking after 3 months that they're out of there, you're going to be okay. There are certain things in rental agreements that you can put to gain leverage. So in a sticky situation, you can point to certain things in your rental agreement to say that, hey, we have all these rules. And instead of going this entire eviction route or whatever, at that point where we live, it doesn't matter even if you have a lease agreement. It literally doesn't matter. So if you have a rental agreement with certain clauses and stuff that can gain you leverage, that can also help you in sticky situations. We thankfully haven't had to deal with that. But on the long term side, yeah, we had to deal with all of those long term headaches. And so that's one of the reasons why I also really just like the midterm space too. They are good caretakers of the home. I feel like they are here for a purpose. And the thing is, when you know that they have somewhere else to go, you're not worried that they're going to stay and squat or whatever, right? They have a mortgage or rent somewhere else or family or their next job. And so sometimes they leave early and maybe just make a couple extra days of income. And so for me, a lot of it is protection as a landlord. That's why I like midterm. I also like serving the people that are occupying these homes. And so it just checks off different boxes for me. And that's why I'm such a big champion of midterm rentals and trying to tell everyone you got to do this. And I can help.
I feel like when you find something you like, you just want to share it. And it's just like all the things. And I talk to people and they're so scared of it. I don't like the word landlord, but I haven't found a different word, host, right? But and I'm like, all of the things that you're worried about don't really happen with midterms. They just don't. And I think people like to share their horror stories to get sympathy. And we all have our stories, right? I have this silly idea that I want to have a landlord only stand-up comedy show. We just get up there.
Um,
Not like
Edwin's count endless.
to laugh about it because sometimes you're like, really? Did they just say that? Or did that just really like so yeah, all the things. But you piqued my interest. So I think coming from a long-term landlord, I know we're wrapping up soon. I am really big on state specific leases, right? Because the laws are very specific. And I think when people hodgepodge leases together, and my dad's an attorney and my best friend's an attorney. So I'm very big, but I like adding addendums, but using like forms that are auto updated. So I'm curious when you mentioned clauses, how do you guys navigate like keeping compliant and all that stuff because of the area you're in?
Yeah, for us, we've migrated from lease agreements to rental agreements. Instead of landlord, we decided we're going to be hosts. Instead of tenants, we're also guests. And that's the language that we use internally. I think it also helps to like psychologically, they're a guest, they're not a tenant. So like how can I serve them? Right. And so we've changed up some of those languages or the words and terminologies in our rental agreements. And we also even have a clause that mentions that if there are like major breaches in the rental agreement, then this can be turned into a criminal thing rather than civil. So if you are in a situation where like you need to call the police, for example, a lot of times anything that's related to landlord tenants, you're going to say, this is a civil issue. You got to call the county or whatever. And then you have to go along that pathway. If you any type of like rental agreement, not necessarily going to help you in like a court of law. And especially if you're in a super tenant friendly state, lease agreements are also not going to help you too. So we decided that's like an extreme worst case scenario. And even if a lease agreement is not going to help, what can we do to gain leverage? And so some of those things are like non-occupancy clauses where it says that the guest states that this is not their primary residence and that they're going to follow all the rules. And if there's any non-payments or if the host says that there's a breach in the contract, then we may be able to institute law, NJ, whatever that says it's a criminal trespass and leverage some of the other ordinances that are existing already within reason, and then have that to help us gain a little bit of leverage when we're actually talking to guests in sticky situations. But state specific leases are really important because there's a lot of nuances, even like how much security deposits can you charge certain fees and like how much notice you have to give, what you have to do with the security deposits. Like for us in New Jersey, security deposits have to go into a separate bank account that accrues interest, and the guest needs to collect that interest too. And so there's different nuances and things. And even though most midterm rental guests are probably not ever going to question that, or they don't even know those tenant laws, right? Because they're not here to be a tenant, but rather they're literally here to be, they probably look at themselves as, oh, I'm a guest. You still want to just protect yourself just in case of the worst case scenario. And that's across the board, whether it's long term, midterm, or short term, either way. And having an attorney just review your agreements is something that should probably be done baseline no matter what you're doing or any type of a business too. Even if it's a co-hosting contract, have an attorney either build it for you or have them review also to let you know what you can and cannot do. And funny thing, so my long-term lease is extremely long. And so it was also vetted by an attorney too. And I had this one pet addendum that was a little too strict. And he was like, yeah, you should definitely take that out because the courts may give you a slap on the wrist. I was like, oh, shoot. Okay. And you can make these agreements really long. And so over time, what you'll do is you'll just keep adding more things in there, whether you're co-hosting or just for your regular lease agreements too. But every time you are making additions, you might want to just run it by an attorney just to make sure, hey, am I legally allowed to do this? Because most of the time, there's a lot of things that you can do, but the things that sometimes you can't do or technicalities, you would not necessarily think that you can't do that. And I always encourage people to do that and don't always just rely on ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. It's a yes man at the end of the day. And so you have to tell it, I need facts only. I need to be backed up by actual laws and ordinances that not just the state, but also the city that I'm in too. And so that's all that stuff's important.
Yes, 100%. I was using chat for a really creative deal structure, and I got to the point where I had to bring an attorney in just to there was some nuance. But I think it can be really dangerous. And I think when people hodgepodge stuff and it's not complex, I mean, I think just but to put the overlay on it for someone that might be freaking out now, it's very unlikely to come to pass. I've never had to pull my lease up and be like, here's it just doesn't really happen. But I think it's the best practice is how I see it. But I love that. Yeah, I just don't go have an attorney look at it. And I think if you're going to craft your own, you really have to have it reviewed annually because things really change and you may not be on the up and up about some ordinance and then you're out of compliance. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm like, that's my long term landlord brain that I'm like, I need blow. I used to just use the same lease. I would just copy it for years
Yeah.
back in the day. And then I realized, oh, e-signature online, it's been a journey, right? Okay. Is there anything else we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about midterm wise? I know we've covered a lot.
I think in the mid-to space, kind of tying back into the whole community aspect too, just in real estate in general, the journey is not meant for you to do this alone. And it's meant to be done together with other people. It doesn't mean that they're investing in you or being their capital partners or anything like that, but being surrounded by like-minded people is a game changer because the journey is hard. The journey is tough, right? One text or phone call, all of a sudden it ruins your entire day. You start to panic, you spiral. That was me when I first started. Over time, you get better at that, right? But you need other people to help you along that journey so that you don't feel alone. Because otherwise, that's how people quit or just stop because you're just in your head all the time. And so, if you can join a community, and there's so many communities out there, go out and just build one at least and make sure you're prioritizing your future self by being in some type of community.
I love that. I think I just had a meetup last night and it was a really small group and there's so many meetups, but there weren't any, there's just not any for buy and hold. So I think, yeah, and I think that's so important. And it's a long game, right? I always tell people my first property, if I knew it was like under 200,000 and that felt like $1 million at the time. Right. And it was like and I house hacked. I didn't know what I was doing. And now I'm like, if I could tell my past self what I know now, I probably would not be right.
My first property, I actually ran out of money 3 times, 3 separate times, and each time it was really intense, like, just the feeling of, "Oh my gosh, it literally my mortgage is due in a week, and I don't have the money for that. How am I gonna figure this out?" And getting hit with that 3 times, I had a 2-week bathroom take 4 months. I had contractors they did a gut renovation of the second floor bathroom. Something happened and it flooded the first floor bathroom that was only going to be a cosmetic. Then I had to gut that. And so the entire experience for me, I bit way more than I can chew. but I learned so much during that entire process, and because I had other people around me, I I was able to continue on, and now I'm in a position where I'm renovating, one of the units at my duplex that I own. By the time renovation even before demo even started, I already had 90% of the renovation already done in my head and all organized, and I knew how things were gonna look. Because I'm able to live vicariously through other people. People are in my community when they're touring houses or when they're renovating, I'm stopping by, I'm bringing my tools to help them to renovate also. And I've gone through real estate cycles of buying and renovating and renting like many times, even though those weren't my assets. And being able to learn vicariously through others is just, it's a amazing hack that I don't think people are taking advantage of.
I think that's so important, and having the fact that you have that vision, you can see through it. Yeah, no, my first house, I remember going to Home Depot and I just left. I was just in tears. Like, there was this one guy and I would like, yeah, I need a screw for this. And I was so emotional. I'm like, well, I was single and I was just like, it was so overwhelming and terrifying. And then I had to rent my upstairs. And I basically rented to strangers on Craigslist, which sounds really bananas. I didn't screen them.
No, you
It's so I got like the no load trust book and how to be a landlord. This is really old school. But the thing is, that's why I tell people to get in it and you figure it out and you find the community and you find the resources. But if you try and figure everything out you're just never going to take any action. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Cause I think sometimes you look at people that are successful and you think they just click their heels and they're just killing it. But we all have a lot of skill.
yes, yes.
Okay. So a couple rapid questions. I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of this, but your top business or life advice you would give someone to live life on their own terms.
I would say be whatever direction you want to go in life, whether it's career, business, life, whatever it may be, someone has gone through that path already. And you need to protect your own headspace. Meaning, when I first got into real estate investing, I told my dad, and my dad, he has house hacked his entire life. So he's been a landlord for many 30 plus years. When I told him I wanted to be a real estate investor and go buy a rental property, he said, don't do it. And also, you're not going to do it. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? You don't even have tools. You don't even know how to do any DIY. Cause I also told him I was going to DIY. And so he said, therefore, you're not going to do it. This is like my own dad. Right. And so what I realized that is that I need to be around people that have already done the thing, ask them the questions, vent to them, not to people that literally have no idea. And that way you're protecting your own mental energy. And I think that's really important. And staying around the people that have done the thing that you want to do and making sure that you're finding that coach or finding that mentor that can also guide you along and borrow their 10,000 hours so that you're not making mistakes. But I think the whole coaching and mentorship piece is absolutely critical in making sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people.
1,000%. If I had gotten that in the beginning again, I kind of fear, and I'm a very independent person, but in real estate, I feel like it feels easy, but I don't think it really is. But everyone puts it out there, and I'm like, that's why I started coaching. I know you coach because I found this recipe, and I'm like, I can give you the 10,000 hours, and you're gonna actually buy and hold versus starting flipping and what everyone will love that, right? But there's a lot of I think you have to find someone that you resonate with, but it does I've had a lot of coaches and I'm very grateful because I would not know how to deal structure and do the things that now come easy to me, right? Like, how do you find seller financing? Like, so I'm glad you said that, right? And you guys, I love your NGO office hours. When I miss it, I'm like, darn, I missed the highlight. So thank you for saying that. Yeah, no, and again, I feel like you're just giving back a lot and you guys are so generous. I'm not just I don't know, I've never met you, but I feel like you just get to know people and you feel like it's community and that's so important. Yeah. Next, almost last question. What is your superpower?
I think one of my superpowers, I assume, but from what I was told, apparently I'm pretty okay at explaining complex things in a way that is easily digestible to someone who's never experienced that. And I think that is something that I'm supposedly good at is because naturally I'm like the analysis, or I used to be the analysis paralysis guy. And so I'm thinking, oh, cool, this is step one, this is step two. What's step 10? What's step 10? Right? And so when I'm someone who's learning, whether I was in school or whatever, I was always thinking about what's the next step, right? What's the next question? And or I feel, oh, I'm on step 2, but I don't know step 1, so that's why I'm still stuck on step 2, and I don't understand this concept. And my entire life has actually, there's this one specific, I know exactly why I am the way that I am. So when I was in middle school or high school, I went from, I think, regular 7th grade or 8th grade math, and they bumped me up to algebra honors. And so I skipped pre-algebra. And so my first day of class in algebra honors, they were like, y equals mxb plus whatever. And I was like, y? What's a y? What's x? Like, what is that? And so I had like, a difficult time with that, and everything turned out great afterwards. But what I realized is that a lot of people, there's a lot of background stuff or the basic stuff that people need to understand first in order for them to understand the main topic or the main point you want to get across. And so I think that's generally what I try to do. Let me try to give you the basics in the beginning so you can have a good baseline. And then I'm going to give you your answer in a way that I think makes sense, or at least to me. And then I'm probably going to answer your next three, four, five questions because I kind of know what the logical next questions are going to be. And I think because of that, I'm somehow able to just curate something where I can explain complex-ish topics in a way that other people can understand. So I think that might be my superpower. Maybe that's also helps me to get co-hosting clients or more arbitrages or get more people in communities where local, online, and whatever. I don't know if it's true, but I've been told by some people that I'm good at explaining things.
No, I can agree with that. And I think that is such a skill because making something so valuable because people get very overwhelmed. And so I used to be a designer, it reminded me. And the thing was like you could break the design rules, but you had to know what they were before you broke them, right? So I love that. And I feel like that's just providing a lot of value too, because people do get in their heads and they just get stuck in spreadsheets and so thank you. I love your superpower. Sorry, my cat is joining the but okay, last question. Just how can people find you, work with you if they want you to manage their properties and you have amazing community? Just what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah. Best way to reach me is through Instagram /James_Hwang. I'm also in all of the MTR Facebook groups, so I'm always answering questions there. Our website is stellarhousingsolutions.com. There's more information about our co-hosting, our arbitrage, our setup services there. I also co-host MTR Office Hours with our good friend Alan Dwan, and this is on a platform called School, SKOOL.com/MTR Office Hours. But yeah, that's the best place to reach me, and I'm happy to help and answer any questions, all things related to midterm rentals.
Yeah, highly recommend that. It's a great community. You guys are just you give so much great tips out. I'm always learning stuff. I think that's the thing about real estate. You never know everything and you're always gonna learn. You have to be open to that. And that's what I love about that community. I was so excited. I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of other MTR stuff.
Yeah.
I'll put all that in the show notes. This was such a fun conversation. I knew it would. I was like so looking forward to it. Though I think we got into some fun stuff. So thanks again. I'll put everything in the notes. And yeah, thanks for coming on.